Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms, firearms policy, politics, culture, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. Happy Election Day. I hope you guys make sure to get out and vote. Please make sure you get out and vote. Vote for candidates who support your right to keep and bear arms. Please make sure that you do that. Also, make sure that you like and share this video feed, as well as our podcast. Let people know this is the spot. This is the place to have those convos about firearms, you name it, policy, culture. This is the spot. Anyway, also want to remind you, please go to FPCGear.com. That's FPCGear.com. When you go there, you can buy coffee mugs, you can buy T-shirts, you can buy hoodies, all promoting pro-Second Amendment messages, encouraging people to support the Second Amendment. The great thing is that just know that every purchase that you make, you will actually be supporting the Second Amendment because every penny goes right back into our fight to keep and bear arms. Well, that was really easy for me to say. Anyway, so make sure you do that. That's FPCGear.com. As I said, it is Election Day. And needless to say that around this time of year, we start to get flooded through the mainstream media with messages about all sorts of issues, issue areas, yada, yada, yada. Interestingly, nationally or throughout the country, there's not a lot of initiatives, with the exception really of the state of Washington. There's not a lot of initiatives that are on the ballot dealing with the Second Amendment. But what is on the ballot are a whole bunch of candidates. And one of the things that the mainstream media is really attempting to do, is they're doing a broad effort to do, is to try and take the anti-gun message, the anti-Second Amendment message, and they're trying to make it mainstream. And one of the ways in which they're trying to do that is by going after a group within as the world sees it, a group within the gun rights community, but as those of us within the gun rights community know, is a completely separate group, and that is hunters. And they're really going after hunters to try and separate them out and get them to put them in a position where they stand differently or stand apart from, separate from those who believe in the right to keep and bear arms. It's interesting. You have organizations like the California Rifle and Pistol Association or NRA, which are also, they advocate also based on hunting. You may notice the Firearms Policy Coalition. We don't deal with hunting. We are not a hunting group. We are a Second Amendment civil rights advocacy group. And last I checked, hunting was not in the Second Amendment. It's not a part of the Second Amendment. So therefore, chances are you're not going to see much of us. You're not going to see us dealing with issues much relating to hunting. There are specifically hunting organizations, and then there are gun rights organizations that also deal in the issue of hunting. But one of the things that we've seen, and one of the challenges that we have in the gun rights community, is actually getting those hunting organizations to really be an active part of fighting for the right to keep and bear arms. Because for some reason, they seem to think that, They're like, first of all, they're like, we're hunting and hunting only. Okay, I get that. I completely get that. But the other thing is that eventually, once they've gotten rid of firearms for self-defense, for which there is a civil right, what makes you think they're not going to come after you? Now, some of them get that, but they still are like, okay, this is kind of what we got to do. And there are many hunters that support gun rights organizations that also deal with hunting, and that's good for them. But then there are those who come out and do things like this open letters from hunters about gun reform. Now, this came to my attention. This is actually a letter that was written back in like April or May, but it came to my attention because of a piece that was done on Vice News. And yes, I follow these things. I'm looking throughout the mainstream media and the other side, even the extremist stuff on the other side, because I want to see what they're saying. And one of the things they're trying to do is to push a greater divide between hunters and the rest of those of us who own firearms, and really create a wedge. Now, a couple of things that are interesting about this particular letter is, one, I think that they're noting, the members of the hunting community are noting that their numbers are dwindling. And that's an important thing, I think, for all of us to really understand. Now, this letter was written. It was actually published on on the Huffington Post, which tells you that probably the only people who really read it were left-wing liberal hunters. But anyway, so this letter really kind of laid out, and it had it had the names of a number of people who had signed on to the letter. One of them being Daniel M. Ash, who was the former U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service director under the Obama administration. Now, if you know that, then you absolutely know that this is an individual who has absolutely no desire to support our right to keep and bear arms. Anyway, so there were other folks, including Joel Vance. He's a current member and former president of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. Trying to think, anybody else support? Oh, here's another one, Rich Patterson, former president of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. So these, once again, these are all people who, are largely outdoors people, but really could give a hoot about our right to keep and bear arms. But one of the things they note is that their numbers are decreasing. And in that, they believe that, well, some of it has to do with kind of the negative tenor of the gun debate. Here's one of the things they note in their letter. It says, as our numbers have dwindled, many have found a comfort alliance with the Second Amendment radicalism. But we believe this is not representative of most hunters, and certainly not the tradition of hunter sportsmen. All right, so let's take that first one real quick. So, in other words, what they're saying is that they call anyone who believes in the Second Amendment that it's radicalism. That when you believe what the Constitution says, that is in fact radicalism. And we see this all the time. We see this in some law enforcement. You have Sheriff Sniff. Stan Sniff in Riverside County, who's running for election, who was upset because he got sued by some civil rights organizations because his concealed carry policy was not consistent with the law. And these organizations, one of them being us, told him, you need to comply with the law. And he said, well, I'm going to work. He's like, well, they're a radical group. I work with more moderate gun rights groups, and you can look and see which organizations have actually endorsed him to know which those are. But there are a group of people out there who literally believe that if you believe in the Second Amendment, then you are radical, right? They believe that you are crazy, right-wing radical. Now, anyone who knows Firearms Policy Coalition, the last thing that you can call us is conservative because, one, we work with anybody. We are a Second Amendment civil rights advocacy group that believes first and foremost in supporting the Second Amendment, and we will go after anyone, including someone who calls themselves a conservative, if they are offering legislation or supporting legislation that is not consistent with the right to keep and bear arms. Seems kind of simple. So, as we go after these people who would call themselves our friends, these hunters, I wanted to these are the quote unquote what they call common sense reforms. And you're going to recognize these, so I'm not going to need to go into a lot of detail on them. But you'll recognize some of these ideas that the Fudds have come up with. Let's go for it. One, a minimum age of 21 years to purchase any gun, because at the age of 18, you are not legally an adult in their eyes. Number two, anyone in the terrorist screening center's no-fly list may not purchase or possess firearms, basically meaning that the tens of thousands of people who are on the list who are not supposed to be on the list, you are out of luck because, well, just because the government can't do their job right, you lose your rights. But these Fudds don't care about that. Number three, anyone on Social Security disability due to mental illness may not purchase or possess firearms. Wow. Okay. So in other words, if you have to have someone handle your finances for you, or you decide to have someone handle your finances for you, you are no longer eligible to have your right to keep and bear arms. This is what these Fudds believe. Number four, prohibit new sales of semi-automatic assault or tactical weapons. This is, first of all, the fact that they call them assault weapons just tells you how little they know about firearms. These are not people who believe in the Second Amendment. These are not people who, quite frankly, care about the Second Amendment. Number five, prohibit new sales of semi-automatic shotguns or rifles, except 22 caliber rimfire that can hold more than 10 rounds. So in other words, no more semi-automatic shotguns or rifles. Absolutely, positively, except 22 rimfire. So in other words, they want to ban the most commonly owned rifles in the country. They want to ban them. They are gun banners, folks. And I cannot stress this enough, my friends. I cannot stress this enough. These individuals, these are hunters who are advocating gun bans. Now, they call us the radicals, yet here they are proposing a gun ban. I don't even see left-wing liberal Democrats trying to push that agenda yet. I don't even see Brady campaign pushing that agenda yet. I mean, they're trying to ease into it. These guys, these hunters, wow, they're dangerous. They just want to get rid of it now. Get rid of them all now. All right, let's move right along. Move right along. We'll move right along. We're moving right along. Come on. Okay, it's deciding that it's not going to take that one, so why don't we just do this? We'll go back to the one that we just had before. There you go. Bam. So that's 4 and 5. I love these technical difficulties. And then we'll go on to 6. Here we go. Prohibit any accessory, designed or mechanical modification intended to increase the rate at which any firearm may discharge. B, increase the magazine capacity of semi-automatic rifle beyond 10 rounds. So now they want to have magazine capacity limits, as well as they want to ban aftermarket trigger groups in order to make firearms more effective. Once again, this is what they are proposing. Number 7, mandatory universal background checks for all firearms. Now keep in mind, they don't say what that is. What they're talking about here is registration, so that they can know what firearms you've purchased and, so that they can know what they purchased, so that when they come ban them, they'll know exactly where to come find them. Number 8, prohibit sales of firearms except through registered licensed dealers, no direct private sales. Which raises the question, does that mean absolutely no private sales? So meaning you can't just go through a dealer, have them do the background check like we do in the state of California? Or is it absolutely positively you have to sell your firearm to a dealer then that dealer then has to sell it to someone else, but you can't sell it to them privately. One has to wonder. But that's also a part of the whole background check thing. Number 9, enact gun violence restraining order. Authorities and courts to temporarily prohibit a person from purchasing or possessing a firearm when a family member, community welfare expert, or law enforcement officer presents evidence of a threat. So once again, these are the red flag laws that they're currently pushing right now. That means you lose your gun rights. You don't, you lose your gun rights without due process. And when you do finally get to go to court, you're guilty until proven innocent. This is, once again, but we're the radical ones. We're the ones that are radical. And then number 10, repeal the Dickey Ban. What is a Dickey Ban? It sounds like some sort of a sex toy. Repeal the Dickey Ban on scientific research in the area of gun violence and implement the Institute of Medicine's 2013 Gun Violence Research Agenda. Now, I want you to note here, they call it the Dickey Ban. They quote it like that's actually a thing. But in actuality, what they're talking about here is something that doesn't exist. There is no Dickey Ban. There is no ban from the Dickey Amendment, which they are referring to. There is no ban on firearms research. What there is there's a ban or a limitation on their ability to advocate, meaning they can't advocate for gun control. That's it. And with that, the CDC has decided that the hundreds of millions of dollars that they have, they will not spend any of that money to research gun violence or firearms because, well, they can't advocate. And because they can't advocate, they won't spend the money because they want to advocate to ban guns. This is what the Fudds are recommending. This is what these people, these hunters who call themselves common sense, is what they're advocating. And folks like Huffington Post, which, by the way, it's mainstream media, but I don't believe it's Main Street America. Same thing with Vice News. It may be mainstream media, but it is not Main Street America. Because in most of these cases and a lot of these ideas that they have here, the ones that are the ones that are what they sound like, most people have come out against those. The ones that sound good but are bad ideas, most people who advocate in the area of policy, even some of the more moderate gun rights organizations, will tell you that they are in fact a bad idea. And, you know, folks, here's the thing, and this is the thing for those of you out there who are hunters. You know, I just be real with you. I don't hunt. I don't hunt. And that's not to say that it doesn't seem like it'd be fun. It's not to say that I got anything against hunting. But last I checked, the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about hunting. So I don't advocate. I'm not a policy advocate for hunting. But I will tell you this. The same people who are trying to take away your ability to hunt are the same exact people who are trying to take away our right to keep and bear arms. And if you think that once they take the firearms that you don't care about, if you don't think that they're going to, after they take those, they're going to come after yours, just keep an eye out. Let me just say this. Lead ammunition ban. Oh, let me also say this. Reduction in public lands where you can actually hunt. Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, it's the same exact people. And what they are doing in these attempts is they are trying to divide and conquer. And I realize that there are folks like the guy who wrote this letter, Mr. Ash. I realize that there are folks like this who will lead you to believe that we are radicals. You know, I'll just put it to you this way. If believing that the Constitution means what it says makes me a radical, then I'm a radical. If standing up and not letting someone arbitrarily just take away my fundamental human right to self-defense and my constitutional right to keep and bear arms, if that makes me a radical, then I'm a radical. But I am a radical on the right side. And I'm telling you right now, if you really think that they're going to stop at you, that they're going to stop at us, all I got to tell you is keep an eye on California. Look at California. Look at what's happening in California. Look at what's happening in New Jersey. And I can tell you right now, anybody who lives in those states will tell you we will either stand together or we will hang separately. So the choice is yours. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate you guys. We really do. Liking and sharing these videos, telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.